Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ryan Miller. I'm the founder of Parent Dome, where I speak primarily about bringing awareness, oversight, and controls to keeping children safe and secure and protected in a digitally immersive life. I am joined by Tom Curran, Dr. Tom Curran, who I recently became acquainted with through Blab, which I'm so thankful for this platform. I sat in a side role of a very lovely conversation that Tom had with another gentleman, and he saw my profile. We spent a brief moment introducing ourselves and getting familiar with our passions being aligned. And we thought this would be a great opportunity for us to know more about each other, how our missions are synergized, and just kind of do an exploratory conversation. So welcome, Tom.
Thank you so much, Ryan. It is great to be with you. So Ryan, I'm on today as Curran Crew, and that's an initiative that my wife Carrie and I started about a year ago, and we just launched our website in June. We have a goal to help moms and dads know just how important they are and to help them to be able to express radiant relationships in their family. So loving each other, loving their kids, and being able to really shine with the beauty and the truth and the goodness of family life. And we do that from a perspective of faith as well. One of the areas, Ryan, that we found that is of pressing concern is this world of the internet. How parents will unwittingly put into the hands of their kids technology that connects their kids to the internet, right? Whether it's one of these little devices here, whether it's a tablet, laptop, desktop computer, gaming console, or some other handheld device. Do parents really know what they're doing when they put these devices into their kids' hands? And we learned from some painful personal experience that, you know what, we had no idea. We should have known better, but we had no idea what we were actually putting into our kids' hands, our oldest daughter's hands in particular, when we gave her an iPhone for her Christmas present when she was in 8th grade. Yes, that's right. We held off until 8th grade before we're one of those mean parents, Ryan. And it was that long before we put this device into her hands. And we had safeguards, a ton of safeguards in our home and all of this, but still it led into a whole new kind of awareness about the minefield of the internet that our kids are facing today.
Yeah, we had a similar situation that we held off for a similar period of time before we made that decision to we didn't actually put the smart technology in her hand, we put the dumb technology in her hand, and soon after that it migrated through the upgrade plan within the family that the technology winds up in the younger hands, and we experienced our own traumas. And similarly to you, we had, being I guess a technologist to a degree myself, I had what I thought was a lockdown, secured environment, and come to find out what we didn't know wound up being a threat to our family.
Wow. That's so striking. And so I know, Ryan, that you and I are both committed, each in our own way, to support and assist and equip parents to be able to gain, in your language, right, that awareness and that control to be able to make their families secure. And we are doing the same in our own way to help raise that sense of how do you form your kids and shepherd your kids to be able to one day be entrusted with this technology? Because, you know, Ryan, you and I both know that our kids are going to leave our homes, when by the time they're out of high school or sometime after that. And so ready or not, here it comes. This technology is going to be all around them. And so how do we form our kids to be able to face these challenges with a sense of maturity and character and understanding, and be able to protect them as well? And so I'm excited to be able to dive into this conversation with you around this and really get the engagement of the folks that are joining us in the chat room, that if they've got questions around Parent Dome, around your effort to be able to equip parents, if you have questions about situations that you've faced or stories that you'd want to tell, this is meant to be a dialogue. And Ryan and I are here to serve you as well as to share with you.
Absolutely. That's very well put, Tom, and I appreciate that. I want to know, recently there was a documentary done by Anderson Cooper on CNN called Being 13. And in there was some statistics that were shared with the viewers, and it had referenced that 99% of parents feel their kids are safe on the internet. And I wanted to get, I've been on Blab and other social media speaking to that, asking people on their framework of the validity of that statistic, what their experience was with that reference. And I wanted to see if you could share with what your thoughts are relative to what that statement was.
You know, and Ryan and I are going to chat for a little bit before we let other folks in. So let us chat for a little bit, and then we'll invite you in to be able to join the dialogue. So if you have a question or a comment at this point, please share it from the chat, and then we'll open the seat in a little bit. So John, why don't you lock the seat for right now, and then we'll open this up for the actual live interaction in just a few minutes. So Ryan, in my experience, as Kerry and I have gone around and talked to groups about forming their kids to be able to safely use the internet, there is this sense of the scales falling from the eyes. I mean, literally, parents not only have no idea what their kids are actually exposed to, there's even a sense of saying, not my child. My kid's a good kid. You know, I've got a good kid, and they hang around with good kids, and so I don't have to worry that they're going to have bad things happen on the internet. And so this sense of a lack of awareness, a lack of a sense of alertness or vigilance, but even a sense of, you know what, this is too much. You know, it's like, I'm not sure I want to have to get engaged as you're saying I need to be engaged to actually keep my kids safe. I've found that those are some of the experiences that I've had in terms of parents feeding back to us.
I appreciate that observation. I recently attended a presentation at a small private school with children that have special needs on the learning spectrum and other disabilities. And it was a representative from the FBI Cyber Crimes Division, because the school did have something affect one of their students that had to get elevated through the principals and the administration. And this gentleman had a captive audience, and he was trying to not preach fear, but draw awareness. And the presentation began really focused, targeting the parents about how the internet has permanence, how all the tools that we use, whether they be social media or Google or whatever it may be, is capturing information about us. So it's a big data collector aggregator. And then he started going into what the risks are. And unfortunately for this person, I'm not sure he was particularly aware of how far the risk reached into the child's lives and the parents' lives. And it was from a federal organization talking to children. They did not prick the conscience to the parents to make them understand how much of a problem it is. So can you share with us what some of your learning has been as some of those risk points that are the scales falling away?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that I have found in terms of parents gaining a new awareness is the nature of the threat and the manner of the threat's approach. So the nature of the threat. So for instance, we talk about internet pornography, and most adults that I talk to, when they think internet pornography, they're thinking, well, that's like pornography when we were younger, which is a Playboy magazine or something like that. And when they hear about the nature of internet pornography today, how it involves live sex acts that you can interact with, and you can pay money to actually create a false, illusory relationship with these people that are doing these sexual things that happen across the board in terms of types and flavors and all these other sorts of things, they're just stunned. And then they learn about the way that the kids themselves get drawn into sexual behavior through sites that like Chat Roulette or Omegle that connect video box to video box, and then they can just click around and be randomly connected. And then the way that connection with random people around the world is introducing them to traumatizing, desensitizing, hypersensitizing of their own sense of sexuality, how it creates this pull that can be addictive, in a number of kids' cases, and then how that leads to behaviors outside into the real world, like through hookup apps, Grindr and Tinder, these apps that are actually connecting people in the real world to hook up sexually. Parents are like, what has happened to the world? They cannot believe it. So the nature of the threat itself, Ryan, I'm telling you, has just, most parents do not have a clue.
So in my learning, it has been that parents are aware of the pervasiveness of the sexual aspects of the internet, the pornography, but not to the point where they could acknowledge that their children may see it or participate in it. There's another element that I had found that precedes that, and it really goes in our worldview, that we see that what I would call something as depravity is how a objectifying of humans in a very physical nature turns them into property as opposed to humanity. And that even with the younger experience on the internet, for children that are given an iPad to interact with a video game such as Magic Penguin or Webkins, is a destination of a deviant mindset, which we'll call the sexual predator, where they're grooming children for a future experience. So it even if you're a teen or tween, you are going to be, presented with this opportunity to experiment and experience that pornographic nature. But even at the younger ages, 6, 7, 8, 9, where they're interacting with seemingly innocuous characters, navigating through a journey and playing games, they will be approached by predators and groomed into the next game experience. Have you seen that?
Yeah, Ryan, talk more about that, because that's something that I would say many parents, when they think about games, they think of innocent games. And they think that, there's very limited ability to have communication on something like Webkins. And so there's limited ability to contact, communicate. So help us understand that phenomenon of grooming, how it shows up on, let's call it a relatively innocent game like Webkins.
Yes, what happens in it? And Webkins starts out as a very innocent, non-interactive experience, that you're just interacting with your character, you're playing games, but as you migrate through the game, there is the ability to interact through a messaging platform or direct communication through texting. And in the conversations I've had with people, I actually have a broadcast where there's a mom with her child playing Webkins in the background who is around 7 years old. And I said, if you don't have eyes on, how do you know what age your child is interacting with on somebody on Webkins? And the mom asked the child, have you seen anybody on Webkins that doesn't sound like a kid? And the kid said, oh yeah, but I blocked them. So the kid acknowledged that there are non-children in the game, but the mother had no awareness of it. And she said, I have to get off and I need to talk to my child because I had no awareness that they're interacting with non-children. So in the example of Webkins, and there's many of those type of experiential games that somebody with ulterior motives can interact with your child. And in my point with the awareness oversight is, without having eyes on, you can't assume who that stranger is your child is talking to.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, you talk about the depravity, the sadness that there is that type of sick individual that's in this world, and that does come at our kids. It's not, see, we don't live in this world anymore. You mentioned what were some of the biggest takeaways in terms of scales falling from the eyes for parents. One of them is the nature of the threat. The other one is the direction or the means by which these threats reach our kids' lives. That so often we would think that in an earlier time on the internet, most of the minefields that are on the internet, like take, for instance, pornography or predators, a lot of it is they, out of curiosity, go stumble into pages or by accident stumble into websites that end up exposing them to things that are disturbing. But now the nature of the threat is that so often these threats are coming at our kids. They don't have to go seek these threats. These threats are finding them. And so often finding them through their friends, through their social networks. So much, pornographic activity comes through sexting, right? Through the texts that are coming to our kids through them having conversations with friends in a group chat or through a social media platform. And all of a sudden, it's not just about you and your child anymore. No, it's about your child's friends. It's your child's social network. That it goes out that additional layer if you're actually going to protect your kids. What do you think about that, Ryan?
I totally agree with that. And when I was at the presentation with the FBI, I said that we have these devices, and the technology itself is not dangerous. The applications themselves are not dangerous. It's what is the stewardship of the user. And I often say that children have the knowledge to use this, which exceeds the parents in many cases, but they don't have the wisdom on how to use it. So they may be doing something innocent, but they don't have the wisdom to understand what's coming through on the other side of that connection. And you're identifying the social media platforms which the kids are participating in, creating this broader awareness to the friends or the friends of friends networks. But what really is startling to me is those tools such as the live streaming tools, the Meerkat, the Periscopes, even tools like this. Anybody that has participated on Blab has had unfortunately seen inappropriate things happen through Blab. But it's your audience now is much broader. And whatever you're doing through live streaming is an invitation to come into your personal private life. And I actually did a demonstration for the parents at that presentation. Then I opened the phone, went on Periscope, drilled down onto live people in the region, and showed them that I don't know if this is your child, but this is what's happening in live streaming. And let's just look at a series of the comments that are happening to, as you say, remove the scales and increase that awareness. It was a painful exercise, but it's for people like us that we know the breadth and depth of this danger. We have a desire to let people know. It's we don't want to shout at them, but we want to help them find awareness on whatever a safe and appropriate way is.
So Jenny writes that it's tough to keep your kids safe today without keeping them off it altogether. And Jenny, you are exactly right. And one of the things that I know we're committed to, and Ryan as well, is stewardship. Ryan used that word, stewardship, and not only having an understanding, but having wisdom. And so we talk about shepherding our kids into 3 different levels of freedom. That the first level of freedom is this idea of you're going to constrain the kids within a certain space. Like a lot of kids, younger kids, video games constrain how it is they can actually participate. So it's like putting up a firewall. But then you can't just say, okay, you're constrained to only use this device in my presence during these hours. That's not always going to be the reality we have with our kids. So then we have to be able to entrust them, but we have to do it wisely. So how do we shepherd them into that freedom where they make choices? And good choices lead to good consequences, rewards. They're going to be able to open up what they get to do on these platforms. We're going to be able to work with them, maybe through a contract. So you use a contract to be able to identify behaviors that are rewarded versus behaviors that are punished. And if you're punished, well, you're going to get more restraints. If you're doing a good job with the technology, you're going to be rewarded with a greater sense of access and trust. Ultimately, we want to be able to have them in a place where they could safely have the technology in their hands, and they wouldn't do what is not life-giving for them because it would be disgusting to them. They wouldn't want to do it because of an internal consequence, not because of the external reward and punishment. I just explained there in about 1.5 minutes something that takes a whole lifetime of parenting to actually bring about. But we're talking about the need to engage as parents with our kids in a conscious and intentional way to say, we're going to form you in these different levels of freedom so that you can one day get to that place where you can be trusted and entrusted with total internet access. So that's our approach, Ryan.
That's a very good approach, Tom, and it's very logical and it makes a lot of sense. And what I think is that parents had done that when they first brought a child home, that they had secured their home, that they had, they secured their home, that before they brought that newborn child home, they put protection in the electrical outlets. They may have put gates in front of stairways. They may have removed hazardous chemicals or put locks on drawers. They would have removed knives from a certain area. Appliances were moved to a remote location. An oven may have had supplemental protection because they knew as that child was going to grow, these were risks that they had to anticipate for the child to not get involved in. And as the child developed and has experienced the consequences or learned about the dangers of it, those outlet protectors would be removed. The stove would be open, the appliances could be used. But, and this is going to sound, I don't want this to come out the wrong way, but if you're in a home that has guns, the gun itself is an inanimate object. Without the use of somebody interacting with that gun, it is harmless. But if you grow up in the home that they use that gun for target practice or for hunting or for defense, there's a level of respect and reverence for that tool that is not put in anyone's hands just arbitrarily. There's a tremendous amount of education oversight that goes into that particular weapon. Well, we have now this new type of weapon that wasn't treated like an outlet, it wasn't treated like an appliance, and it wasn't treated like the other elements when that child is developing. There was like a misstep that we thought that we could address it when it comes up and hope an issue is not going to come up. And that was where, back to that CNN statistic, I believe that 94% of the parents saying their kids are safe on the internet are thinking, not my child, and they will address it if it becomes their child. And what I think the gap in there is when it happens, how big and how dramatic and how painful that experience is on the other side of not putting the protection in.
Yeah, Ryan, that's a great analogy. You know, when we think about that, that analogy, when they're infantile and they're very young, you do all kinds of protections, and as they get older, you can safely remove them. Unfortunately, we don't do that same thing with regards to these types of devices, right? I think many parents begin with one of two simple things. Well, I'll give my child a phone. It's a phone, so that when my child's not in my presence, I can get in contact with him or her, or they can be in touch with me. So it's a phone. Unfortunately, this is not a phone. It's a mobile computer that happens to be able to make phone calls. And parents, their awareness of what this device is actually making accessible to their kids is the first aha moment. I think the second is a lot of parents today just struggle with restraining from giving their kids a phone because everybody else has one. I talked about being a mean parent at the beginning of the blab because when our daughter finally received a phone as a gift at Christmas in her 8th grade year, she was socially embarrassed because all of her friends had phones and all of her friends had phones for years. And so the fact that she didn't have one was really a bit of peer pressure, social embarrassment, like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you have one? And so I think a lot of parents almost lack a backbone when it comes to saying, I need to kind of stand up to my kid and stand up with my child and say, look, if you're going to get one of these, we need to set up those sense of gates and protectors so that you don't stumble into landmines that in fact are really going to hurt you.
So, and you bring up an interesting point, which is what I'll call the psychology of parenting, and that I appreciate the perspective that you come from a faith perspective, in that there's been a transformational shift with many parent-child relationships, and I would say it is the unintended consequences of that shift, which I'll address in a second, is that the resiliency of the child is not being developed or reinforced. And to reference that, we'll call it the sling. What do they call it? The slingback child. The child goes out or coming back home. I forget what that's called. But there's more of a desire to have a friendship with your child because of some emotional need that a parent needs to have filled to be fulfilled in a friendship relationship with their child, as opposed to the custodian, caregiver, leader, the caregiver role, and being the shepherd of the flock as opposed to being part of the flock.
You know what? It's a very, very important thing. And again, it's just like, Ryan, what you're talking about is the important part that the parents play, the degree to which we need to be engaged, right? The degree to which we need to be engaged is the example we use, or the analogy is, our older kids are involved in club sports or these higher degree intense activity of sports. And when I say to parents, do you have any of your kids in this club sport? It's like, what does it cost from you? What does it take? And they're like, time and money and commitment and effort, and all because you want your child to be successful at this sport. And then I'm like, are you willing to be that engaged when it comes to this device? And the answer is most parents are like, well, no, those devices are kind of like freeing me from having to spend a lot of time with my kids. It's like, just let them watch a show, let them play their game, let them just kind of, I get a break, I get a breathe. It's too much to say now I've got to be that much more engaged. It's really sad, but that is what we hear again and again and again. It's that, am I really ready to be that engaged? And
in the age of growing up where the parents would put a child in front of a TV in order to accomplish tasks in the home, it was a one-directional form of communication. Sure, you would receive the programming that's aimed at you, and that just being put in front of a TV had certain levels of harm, but not the type of harm that you can experience by disengaging from the TV and having a two-way communication with absolute strangers. There's a shift that, to your point, that I'm getting a break by putting this device in my children's hands or letting them sit at a computer. I'm getting a break from that, not understanding awareness as to what's coming in through the other side.
And and what happens is, so here's a real story of parents that aren't quite so engaged when it comes to technology. They can be very engaged in other ways. So this is a good kid from a good family, very engaged, but they gave this child access to Instagram and didn't monitor it. So Instagram, this girl took some pictures of herself, posted them on Instagram, then started getting messages from someone she didn't know saying, hey, you're cute, you're pretty, hey, I want to get to know you, will you be my girlfriend? And she was flattered because she wasn't getting that kind of attention from boys. She's a 7th grader, offline. And so she started to say, oh, thanks, it's nice to meet you. Yeah, maybe we can be boyfriend, girlfriend. Well, unbeknownst to her, he had been able to track her location geographically. She was walking outside one day, and there was this boy there outside her home, and he said, hi, I'm so-and-so. And she was like, what is going on? And he's like, if you're my girlfriend, you can't dress like that. I want my girlfriend to dress in a way that's more modest, or something like that. Well, she went back into the house. She got really freaked out, as you can imagine, and she didn't know what to do. Now she felt like she was caught twice. She was having conversations that she was like, I know my mom and dad aren't going to be happy if they knew I was doing this. So that guilt made her hide. Then she had this encounter that was so disturbing, and she was like, now I'm really going to be in trouble. So she hid another layer. And so she ended up secretly telling a friend of hers. Well, that friend was so troubled that she told our daughter. And our daughter was like, I've now learned a secret that was told to me in secret by someone who passed on a secret. Well, thanks be to God, she recognized that this was dangerous. So she told us, we called the girl's parents and said, we don't know how much is true, we don't know how much is real, but we want you to be aware that this is the story we've heard. Well, thanks be to God, they were able to intervene, talk to their daughter, eliminate contact, be able to protect their daughter. But it's like, oh my gosh, this is just an example of the kind of dynamic that's happening every single day on a platform like Instagram.
I'd want to echo what you're saying, Tom, because people may interpret that story as anecdotal, but that is, Tom just described an experience of somebody interacting on Instagram, which is very innocuous. It's just sharing photos. And one of the things that I speak about are what I call digital footprints. It is the digital trace that people are leaving for anybody. So the Instagram with location settings, or checking into a location with Facebook or Foursquare or whatever it may be, there was a trend at the going back to school that parents were elated that they're sending their kids back to school. It's like getting ready to head back for Christmas commercial from Target. And my Facebook profile was filled with parents taking the back to school photos of their kids with their new outfits, their book bags, right behind the bus, showing where they are. And some parents went and picked up their kids after school and showed the after results of the day at the school with location settings on. And there are stories out that after those photos are published, people are taking that data and putting children up on an auction block that for X amount of dollars capture this kid, and they will trade this kid in an underground business, underground child trafficking. Now that's a horrible extreme, but these digital footprints make our children available to very minor, non-life-altering events, but then they can be on the gross side of unimaginable.
That is stunning. That blows me away, Ryan, to hear that kind of thing is happening today. I've had just a couple of other instances that are, again, kids in a social network using it for bullying or sexting purposes. So just again, these are real examples from my own real life. There was a friend of my oldest daughter in 8th grade started getting denigrating messages sent to her saying you're ugly and you're funny looking and things like this on some pictures on Instagram. And it was being sent from an account that nobody knew. There was no identifying information. However, there was the digital footprint. And it didn't take long for kids to go find the location from which certain communications were sent. And then they were able to identify the girls in her class that were sending those denigrating messages to her, and they got in trouble. And the parents had no clue. And a second one was several girls in one of my daughter's classes started receiving invitations from some unknown person. Again, it was a fake account set up on Instagram saying, hey, you're really cute, you're really pretty, can you send me a picture in your underwear? And it was asking for sexually provocative pictures. And when they did what they did was the girls that were getting these messages just did a quick little look, and what they found was the only kids that were having connections with this account that was set up were girls in that school. So they didn't know who it was, but they knew that it was someone from that school who was looking for ammunition, sexually provocative pictures to use for whatever really harmful or evil purpose. And so these are the kinds of things that, again, are actually happening every single day through a platform like Instagram. That's where the kids are. If I hear one more time, oh, we have to help your kids on Facebook, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is not where tweens are spending their time. They're on Instagram, they're on Snapchat, they're on even Twitter in their own way. They're on Kick, they're on group chatting. So Ryan, what do you think?
No, I'm totally with you, and that was one of my frustrations in meeting with the FBI individual, that they were focusing on the power of Facebook, and I was like, the children have migrated away from that. I mean, the applications that you just rattled off with more, and it's up. So let me give you a very. It's hard to connect these dots. So YouNow is one of the very, very popular applications where kids are in this quest of celebrity. And that all relates to what you just said about Snapchat, Kick, and some of the others. But there are other apps which on the surface don't seem to be a problem. So I don't know if you've heard of Musical.ly or Dub Smash. These are very fun applications where you can record a video of yourself lip syncing either to popular lyrics or popular movie titles. And on the surface, it seems very innocuous, and that it would be a fun thing. And I myself was entertained by doing it, and I'm scrolling through what people are doing. And then all of a sudden you see videos that are inappropriate, that is just a song lyric, but people are getting in costume. They're trying to be as creative as they can to boost their celebrity of these broadcasts. And then it winds up just going down in this bad direction. So people are encouraging them down this negative path. And I want,
Ryan, one of the things that we do is we teach moms and dads how to accompany their kids onto these platforms. So my wife, Carrie, she has an Instagram account. She follows all our kids that are on Instagram. She follows their friends. And what she does is she's creating a footprint where she is evangelizing, where she's being a light. She's putting up positive messages. And it's amazing how a platform that can be used for so much evil, for so much degradation and impacting negatively the dignity of young men and women, boys and girls, you can also use for good. And so she is on Instagram posting positive messages, and she is even providing a level of on-platform monitoring of our kids' friends. So if she sees that one of our kids' friends are posting something that is using bad language or it's an immodest picture, she'll just gently send them a little message, and then 9 times out of 10, that post disappears. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Curran. I'm sorry about that message. And all of a sudden, it's all gone. It's amazing how you can wash over young boys and girls, these tweens and teens, with positive messages, positive impact, and help them be their best selves. But that takes some time. That takes some accompaniment.
And I agree with that. That is the kind of custodial relationship that we have developed in our home that is based upon a foundation of a contract, that when we put that device into our daughter's hand at the 8th grade level, we had identified that this is not hers. This is ours. I am allowing you use of this based upon these criteria, and the criteria is not fixed. It is subject to change based upon your responsibility and your accountability and the duties that we identify in the contract. And we're similar to your wife in that regard. That's part of the contract, that any social media application will not be permitted to be loaded on your phone. We will allow it to be evaluated on our phone. We will do it in conjunction with you to determine if it is something that we can trust you to do. Oh, by the way, we're still going to be participating and supervising all of that activity. And those points, I agree that the contract, the agreement, the schools call it a technology permitted use document. The schools have those agreements with their children that they're shepherding in the school system. It's great to have that kind of relationship at home, which is even more powerful than what the schools are providing.
Yeah, absolutely. A contract is a tremendous tool to help guide our kids along the way. And, one of the things I want to make sure that the folks in the room are able to do is to find out more about the resources and the course that you have that is so extensive to help folks be able to dig into these topics with far more detail than we're actually able to cover in this short blab. So Ryan, I know that if people go to parentdome.com, that they'll be able to learn more about you and see the course, but tell them what they'll get if they look at that course.
Oh my gosh, I appreciate that, Tom. So this is I recognize who I am and what I am not, and I am not an internet marketer, so I'm still stubbling my toes on the internet marketing aspect. So I have an educational platform which I have 300 and some odd lessons, along with 80 downloads of research documentation, which is the impetus to create this lesson content. So just coming into the site, there are probably the top 5 questions that people ask, or I've been approached in dealing with how do I protect my children on the internet. So we have some top 5 videos. We also have some free downloads. The contract that we talked about, that is available. There's things to start you on the journey. Then everything on our site is broken down into modules, and I've provided an overview of what each of these modules are. And the challenge for me, Tom, to be honest, has been that this is a very enmeshed topic area, because we're talking about smartphones, but it's also the internet gateway, the router, the video games, the smart apps. And with the advent of the Internet of Things, these are all digital risk entry points that it's not a pill that you can take and make it go away. Whoever mentioned it earlier, it said, you have no risk of dying if you've never been born. Somebody can't write anything bad about you if you've given them nothing to write about. So this is if you're not connected, you don't have a risk. But if you are going to connect, it is so tangential, all of these areas. So my site appears overwhelming. It wasn't intended to do that. It was meant to get as much resources to parents to digest at their own timeline. So thank you for that. So share with them what you're working on.
Yeah, so Ryan, I love what he's done. He's provided the most thorough and complete set of resources to help you understand the technological layer of this challenge that we face, to provide a parent dome, a layer of protection over our kids. And it's truly an invaluable service that Ryan has provided. It's really incredible. What Kerry and I are doing is a lot more humble, and it's hopefully complementary to that. Our focus is on really, how do you shepherd your kids? How do you shepherd your kids along to be able to relate to this technology? And so while we cover technology, it's in a much thinner layer. We focus a lot on the call that we have to be engaged with our kids and to be able to form our kids in a way that would help them to be eventually able to be trusted with this. And so along the lines of that, we have a free webinar that we're launching next Wednesday. And so we're going to actually bring into the room one of my what's it called, other Twitter handles, Dr. Tom Curran, and we're going to play just the trailer for the webinar, if that's okay, so that folks can see it. I had no idea what we were putting into our daughter's hands when we gave her an iPhone as a Christmas gift when she was in 8th grade. We thought we were just giving her a way to communicate with us when she was not in the house. But it opened up to us a whole realm of dangers and challenges that arrived on our doorsteps as parents.
And so many parents are frustrated because we find our kids on this device during dinner time or in the car or when their friends are over. And it's like, how do you set up boundaries? How do you manage that? Or we send our kids to a sleepover and we're not sure, what are they accessing on the internet? What are they doing over there? What kind of messages are they getting from other group texts? More seriously, when we do this seminar, we hear over and over again about the families who find internet pornography screenshotted on their iPad, the family iPad, because the 3rd or 4th grade son is just curious and wants to look up the word sex. And all of a sudden, they've been brought into this portal of real danger and devastation. Some of the other areas that are serious is self-harm or gaming. There are just so many areas that we were not aware of until our daughter got this iPhone and we had to engage with her.
And this world is changing so quickly. So as Carrie and I were seeking ways to find resources to help address these challenges, we just couldn't find something that was easy to access and provided everything that a parent needed. So we developed this webinar. It's a free webinar. It's going to happen live. We hope you'll register. On it, we're going to raise issues that will help you become aware, learn how to address these issues from a technological standpoint. But most importantly, we are here to help you foster in your child what that child needs to make good choices, to be safe and to safely navigate the many challenges that are out there.
So we'd love you to sign up. We'd love you to join us live. It's going to be great. You can message in your questions, bring issues that you have. We've been doing this for a couple of years now, and we would love to have you come and be informed as parents.
That's a lovely video, Tom. You and your wife did a fabulous job. Oh, she didn't need to check out.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It was just instead of me trying to explain what was on there, it's like, well, I'll just point people to the webinar video that we're promoting it. And I'm going to ask John to type in the website. It's Curran. You can actually just get the page to the live so they can actually register for the page. Thank you, John. If you go to currancrew.tv and then you click on the banner that says live, it'll take you to the page that says, that has the, you have to scroll down a little bit beyond, and then just plug that link, right? Scroll down a little bit more. There we go. Oh, you want to actually open the page and then copy the link. There you go. So it's currancrew.tv/parenting the digital generation. It'll appear in the chat in just a minute, Ryan. So thanks for that.
I would encourage everybody to.
Yeah.
I would encourage everybody to participate in that webinar. I myself will be participating in that, and I want everybody also to recognize that Tom and I are on a similar mission path, and we're continuing to talk to each other. That there's a level of collaboration and cooperation, and we both understand that we have a mission before us, and we may approach it in different facets, but we're talking about how do we both accomplish this mission.
Yeah, I'm firmly convinced. I've been doing different kinds of work in nonprofits and ministries and for-profits for 2.5 decades, and I'm so convinced we do more when we do it together. We do more when we do it together. No one thing, no one person can cover it all. And the need is an ocean. And we're two little tugboats.
Yes.
And we're kind of moving out into an ocean of throbbing need. And so if we can do anything to help stir up more parents to be engaged, to provide a dome of protection over their family, to shepherd their kids into a place of trust when it comes to technology, and to form kids to be a light to their own generation, I'm in.
Yeah.
I am in.
And I'm right beside you, Tom. And also, there have been others that have been visiting this session that are from across the world that have a unique visibility. He didn't come into the room, but I would invite him to. That's Doug Johnson, who is in the UK. And he has a passion. He's a foster parent for over 18 years. And in the UK, they have what's called corporate parenting. And the government has requirements and regulations when you're taking in a ward of the state into your home, how to protect them on technology. And he has got a very unique vantage point, and he is also part of this mission. So there are lots of pieces out there that are wanting to support what we're doing, to collaborate what we're doing. And I agree, it's not a one-person mission, and there's many pieces that can be filled in for support.
Well, this is great. So, Ryan, we've been on for just over 50 minutes now. So do you want to wrap up? How do you want to continue?
I'd like to just point out one more story, if I could. I broadcast on Periscope 1, 2, 3 times a day based upon the activities that are happening relative to the risks and threats on the internet. So when I was at the FBI presentation, I scoped on that. But there's something that happened in my little geography here that is not in the news yet, but it is going to be in the news because it's so bad. And this happens in a set of our community that is in the affluent part of the community, where and it centers around a parochial school, which is pretty high net worth individuals. And a young girl was celebrating her sweet 16th birthday party. So the parents held an event at the local country club with a few select people. And after the event, the children were heading back to the parents' homes, and the girl posted something on social media to broaden her circle of friends. So they get back to the home, and a couple of people start showing up at the door, and the parents said, listen, this was a private event. We didn't want to have more people coming in to celebrate your birthday party. And the teen pressured the parents to open the door to allow more people coming in. Well, it wound up going out through social media that pretty much her whole entire class wound up in the basement of the parents' home. Well, the parents knew the kids from the school, and they were screening them as they came through the door and went down into the basement. But unfortunately, there was not a lot of trips down into the basement to see what was going on and supervising. And the kids had backpacks stashed around the back of the house, and they were bringing things in through the basement. And when the parents came in and were checking, they were smoking things that were illegal. They were smuggled in alcohol, and it wound up getting bad. But that wasn't the bad part. The parents immediately seized control of that and started ushering people out of the home. Some kids were amicable. Some kids were combative. They got them out of the house. But what happened that really is damaging at this point is that the kids thought it would be fun to be periscoping what was happening down in the basement. There's an actual video record on Periscope of multiple people periscoping that event, and it was recorded on catch. People had reported this to the police, so the police are now in possession of these live video recordings of kids doing things illegal in this parent's home. And we're dealing with kids being, one, punished by the school system. That whole class and those kids that were identified in the video are being punished. But now the legal piece is coming in, and the parents, not to their own, the parents didn't invite it to come into their home, but it happened under the radar. So this is something that is fresh, and it was something, as I said, the children have the knowledge, but they lack the wisdom. And I just want to use that as a simple illustration that we may be thinking that we're protecting them, but at any moment's notice, without an oversight and control, a risk can happen.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan, that's scary, and you know what? That is the first story of many to come.
Oh my gosh.
You know, the world of Periscope, the world of having immediate capacity to live stream things. It's not going to take long for kids to be cute, to pull these things out and have that happen anywhere and everywhere, showing everybody everything forever. You know, we're in a new world, and that new world is going to only get more complicated. It's not going to get less complicated. It's going to get far messier before it ever gets cleaner. That's the world we're in right now. And so that concept of vigilance, that concept of being on alert is only going to be ever more needed today. So, Ryan, what you've been doing, what we've done now, and they're starting to do more online, I mean, I'm not sure there are more important missions right now, equipping parents to be able to recognize they're putting car keys into the hands of their kids is what they're doing when they're putting this into the hands of their kids.
Well, you know, I'm sorry. I resonate with your passion, Tom, and you and I are convicted on this mission, and we're going to do the best we can to honor and delicately navigate that relationship as somebody is passionate about a mission and encouraging parents to that journey of discovery. Let's call it.
Absolutely.
So,
and I do want to call out Sharita. Thanks for all your comments, and I know she knows you, loves what you're doing at Parent Dome, and she registered for the webinar, so that's exciting. And a special shout out to CSG Talk Radio, who's been making some tremendous contributions in the chat, and he says he wants to join the mission, so we should be in touch with him, Ryan, and he's certainly a guy who has an awareness of what's going on. Oh, I apologize. Oh my gosh.
He follows me on Periscope.
Awesome.
Yes.
That is awesome.
And the gentleman I was referring to from the UK, his name is Doug. He is under the handle T White No Sugar. And he just said, same with the terms and conditions, the adult is responsible for young person's action, including sexting. And that is one aspect that I do want to touch on, and that is the legal exposure, is that we have our perception as to what privacy is, but the law is clear and inarticulate as to what expectation of privacy is and what things fit the context of that. So any photo or video is not a violation of your privacy. Certain states have a two-party law where you have to be informed of an audio recording, but if the audio is turned off and the video is recording, your privacy is not being violated. There are certain areas where that expectation is afforded to you. That is in a restroom or in a shower area, but short of that, nobody needs to ask permission for that. But as it relates to the law, that is often overlooked as to the terms and conditions, the agreements that parents who can sign contracts entrusting a device that cannot be with a contract holder, minors cannot hold contracts on devices, that any of those risks that are happening through sexting or pornography trickles right up back to the contract holder. So yes, the child will be subject to felony charges, but the parent will have more severe charges. So I wanted to point that out. That is a module it's actually a big module that we talk about those things.
You know, Ryan, so I'll end with this real story. In a certain sense, it's why I'm here. One of the things that Carrie and I say is we didn't choose this topic, it chose us. We didn't seek this topic, it found us. And it found us because this found its way into the hands of our 8th grade daughter. And we ended up seeing that she had been a little bit like disturbed one day. And we're like, what's going on? And came to find out that she was fearful of revealing to us the fact that she had been the victim of sexting. And I got the device and I downloaded all the content off of her phone. You know, there's software you can do that. People don't even know this. So I downloaded this group chat that had been going on for several months. And so my daughter had only been intermittently part of it. And it was over 220 pages of a group chat. And I went through the 220 pages that covered several months. And this is where the scales really fell from my eyes. Let me tell you, Ryan, it's where I discovered about the kind of pornographic sites there are out there. Well, in the midst of it all, I discovered this conversation that went back and forth between, hear me now, good kids. Good kids. I knew these kids, and these kids were 4 boys were chatting with 2 girls, one of them my daughter. And as the chat went on, it was like, should we share the picture? Should we share the picture? And they're like, no, don't, no, don't, no, don't. And they ended up sharing a picture of male genitals of a classmate that this kid had sent to them. They then passed it on to her. And we saw this and we're like, oh my gosh, this is really troubling to us. So the first thing we did is we went to the school and said, look, you need to be able to know that this is happening in your school. We'd like you to be able to address this to the parents and to the kids. They didn't do anything.
No.
They didn't do anything. They moved the boy who's had been harassing my daughter. They moved his seat. And I'm like, okay, this is not enough. So I went back in and I said, look, this is at minimum the most serious type of misdemeanor that is on the books in the law in the state of Washington at a minimum, or it's a felony, depending on how the police would interpret it. I said, I don't want to deal with it like that, but unless you take this more seriously, the police will become involved. I have a responsibility to help keep all these kids safe and get this to be dealt with. And so, thanks be to God, they took a more serious action. They took a closer look at everything, and they took more intervention in the lives of the kids. But let me tell you, do you know who everybody got mad at?
You.
Us. Not at the kids.
No.
Not at the parents.
No.
Not at the school, but at us. And you know why? Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. I mean, come on, really? Is this really that big of a deal? And I was saddened beyond belief that parents weren't willing to be engaged. And yeah, they'll get over it. Come on now. Oh, come on. This is not a big deal. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So it was like, we've got to do something. We've got to do something to bring some light onto this issue. So that's literally why I'm here today, Ryan.
Our stories are similar, and the issues that happened with my child are similar, and to the point where I've actually had a predator who was stalking 26 young girls put in prison because the system wouldn't do something about it. And I had to do something about it because my worldview does not allow the acceptance of predatory behavior and victimization. And you're using a word in there and you're shining a light on this, but my experience is we have a collision of worldviews, and we're going to encounter a collision of worldviews. Just continue to shine the light, and people can hide from it, and that's their choice. But there are consequences when we stay in the dark, and it was a very good point.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Well, Ryan, this was our great first blab. It's our first.
It was very good, and it was a pleasure to see you first time face to face. You get to see my hairy. Oh, just so you know, I am a long-haired person, but there's a reason for that. For the past 15 years, I've been on a mission of donating hair for Locks for Love. So I wait until I get to 23 inches, and then I chop, and then I go through another cycle. So it's something it's just who I am, and I'm growing the beard because it's snow weather out here.
That's beautiful. I love it. I love it. That's awesome.
So thank you so much for doing this, Tom, and us mutually facilitating it. And I look forward to us doing it again. Again, folks, Tom, in the chat roll, if I can, I'd like to repost that if you didn't take it. Well, you know what? I will copy it, Tom, and I will post it. Got it. And I will reshare that out because I will be, as I mentioned, I already signed up and I want to participate, and I look forward to doing these again.
Absolutely, Ryan. I'm excited about where we're going to go together from here.
Likewise. So thank you very much. Thank you all for participating in the chat roll, and we'll look forward to another scheduled session with myself and Dr. Tom and Carrie. Take care. Thanks.